Behaviorism. We will look at the history of behaviorism. We will ask what are the main tenets of behaviorism. We will look at criticism of behaviorism and then give some overview at the end. So first, the history. For the first half of the 20th century, the behaviorist view of language development was generally accepted. It was first proposed by John Watson in 1913, but the best-known proponent was B.F. Skinner. His book, Verbal Behavior, published in 1957, was a written account for human language learning. Soon after, Skinner's book was highly criticized by Noam Chomsky, who was able to show that language was too complex to be learned through Skinner's behaviorist model. By the 1970s, behaviorism gave way to cognitive science. Before we get to that, let's take a look at the main tenets of behaviorism. So what is behaviorism? Behaviorism is the theory that all behaviors are acquired through interaction with the environment. The examples of interactions are imitation, reinforcement, practice, and habit formation. Let's consider a parent speaking to their child. The parent displays the desired behavior by saying mama, mama. The baby then tries to mimic the sounds by repeating ma. The parent then hugs or kisses, snuggles or praises the baby, thus reinforcing the behavior of saying ma. Because this behavior of saying ma helps the baby to get its basic needs met, the baby is likely to practice this behavior over and over until it is a habit. This habit then leads to the mastery of mama, for which the baby receives more praise. Imagine this happening over and over for every word, part of speech, phrase, or sentence of a language. This process is called operant conditioning. When learners are encouraged or positively rewarded for showing a desired behavior, this results in the continuation of said behavior. If learners are discouraged or punished for showing an undesired behavior, this results in the learner not repeating the behavior. Behaviorism holds that language is learned solely through operant conditioning, and in this way the whole house of language is built, each word, phrase, or sentence acting as one brick in the foundation. A daunting task indeed, so daunting that some would say it's impossible. Noam Chomsky brings on the end to behaviorism by stating that language is too complex and novel to be learned through mimicry alone. He states that there must be some universal grammar that is built into the brain. This universal grammar structures the way someone learns their first or second language. The underlying structures for language acquisition are innate. Another critique of behaviorism comes by critiquing the contrastive analysis hypothesis. The contrastive analysis hypothesis supports the theory of behaviorism and holds that errors in someone learning a second language should be based on the differences between that second language and their mother language or their first language. And this is wrong. Instead, second language learners do not make many errors that would be predicted given their first language, and their actual errors tend to follow the same path of development as those of a child learning their first language. This suggests also that there are underlying frameworks in the brain for language learning. Whether a person is learning their first language, their second, or their third, they are likely to undergo a similar path of development. This criticism proved to be the beginning of the end of the widespread acceptance of behaviorist views, and by the 1970s, behaviorism gave way to cognitive science. Behaviorists based their second language acquisition theories on the notion of positive reinforcement. According to behaviorists, second languages were developed through mimicry and memorization. According to this perspective, when a child was rewarded in some way for their language response, they would increase their responses and decrease responses that were negatively responded to or not responded to at all. Also, because language development was tied to the development of habits, this theory complemented the contrastive analysis hypothesis that theorized that there would be a collaboration between the patterns of speech in the child's first language and the rate in which they learned aspects of the second language. basically saying that the first language would interfere with learning the second language. Chomsky comes along and says that language development proceeds upon predictable paths across the population, whether they're learning the first or second language. Also, there are universal forms found in all languages, such as prepositions. Even though these forms may not be used in the same order in different languages, they are still universally present. Whereas one language might say the dog is in the cage, another might say the dog is in the cage, the cage in. Lastly, the errors made by second language learners are not necessarily related to what they know in their first language. Instead, the path of development in their second language more closely relates to the path of development in their first language. Again, which suggests that when learning a second language, the underlying universal grammar supersedes any habits formed in the mother language. It is for these reasons that the assumptions of behaviorism have given way to the innatist perspective. Currently, the cognitive or developmental perspective of language development is preferred. Thank you for your time.